Thank you for joining us for the Orange County Realtors C.A.R. and NAR Director Informational Meeting. I am your facilitator, Lori Namazi, and I've been very involved at the local, state, and national level for many years, but a few highlights. I am a current C.A.R. and NAR Director. I've been a C.A.R. Director for probably 12 or 13 years now, and have been going to NAR for about 10 years, and I believe I've been a director for about 6 of those years. I was also the 2025 C.A.R. Regional Chair, responsible for our entire region, and I was the 2021 President of Orange County Realtors. And so with that, I want to go ahead and let you know what we're going to be talking about today. So our objectives today are really to talk about the association relationship. We have 3 different levels. So what's the relationship? Then we'll move to roles and responsibilities of C.A.R. and NAR directors. We'll talk about the time commitments, preparing for the meetings, expectations after returning from the meetings, and then leadership opportunities, along with the application and selection process. And then I'll provide some resources for you to follow up with after our session. So first, we'll talk about the association relationship. So the term realtor is a registered collective trademark that identifies a real estate professional who is a member of the National Association of Realtors, which means we subscribe to a strict code of ethics. In very narrow circumstances, you might be a licensee who's not a realtor, but the majority of us are realtors. And that's due to our membership at Orange County Realtors and or other local associations, and then also the National Association of Realtors. But along with that, we also have C.A.R. So you can look at it as a triangle. We've got these 3 levels and they're related to each other. Or you can look at it more like a hierarchy with NAR indirectly being the parent of the entire organization. They are the parent of the entire organization with some specific ways that they are not the parent of the organization, and we are bound by rules at either C.A.R. or OCR. So they act as 3 independent entities, but are related. And so it's important to understand a little bit about that. And we're not going to go into that further here, but our goal today is to really talk about your involvement at Orange County Realtors and then subsequently to the California Association of Realtors and the National Association of Realtors. And so we'll talk first about Orange County Realtors. So we are a local association of the National Association of Realtors, which is the world's largest professional association. And our mission at Orange County Realtors is to provide services and resources to licensed real estate salespersons and brokers, appraisers, affiliated service industries such as mortgage, title, and escrow. And so then we have the California Association, which is a statewide trade association dedicated to the advancement of professionalism in real estate. And they develop and promote programs and services that enhance members' freedom and ability to conduct their individual businesses successfully with integrity and competency and through collective action. And they promote the preservation of real property rights. And so the missions are very similar. Here is a map of the California Association of Realtors territories and regions. The membership is grouped into 30 regions across the states. There is no region 20 or 26, and we are region 32. So when I say there's 30, there are 2 that are not utilized anymore because they have merged with other regions. And so region 32, you'll see on the map towards the bottom, we cover Orange County, but our region is comprised of Orange County Realtors, Newport Beach Association of Realtors, and the Laguna Beach Association of Realtors. So the local associations are grouped together. So when we go to C.A.R., we go as a group and we can talk about the issues in our market. And the associations for us, thankfully, are all neighbors. And so our issues tend to overlap. But there are some regions, like look at region 12, in the Central Valley, they are very widespread. And so their issues can vary very widely in that area. So then we'll talk about the National Association of Realtors. So it's an American trade association involved in all aspects of residential and commercial real estate. the mission to empower realtors as they preserve, protect, and advance the right to real property for all. And membership is composed of residential and commercial brokers, salespersons, property managers, appraisers, counselors, and others engaged in the real estate industry. And so here's a map of how the National Association of Realtors is broken down. So we're broken down into 13 regions across the country, and we are part of Region 13. And Region 13 consists of the California Association of Realtors, the Hawaii Association of Realtors, and the Guam Association of Realtors, a territory of the United States. And so you can see that members belong to one or more of approximately 1,200 local associations or state boards, or boards, and 54 state and territory associations. That's just across the US. We actually do have realtor members in a number of countries, outside the US. So we are truly worldwide. I didn't have the time to check how many countries are a part of the National Association of Realtors, but there are many, a couple dozen. And so, as you can see, each of the missions of the local, state, and national really are aligned. Our responsibilities and our efforts are really geared toward preserving private property rights, but also in preserving our industry. And so with that, now that you have some background on each of the levels, now we'll talk about understanding the roles and responsibilities of C.A.R. and NAR directors. So the next couple of slides, you'll see I have a side-by-side comparison, and the differences are in bold. So as a C.A.R. director, you're expected to share local priorities, whereas a national director, you're expected to share statewide priorities. And as a C.A.R. director, we look to shape statewide policies and practice that enhance the level of professionalism and protect property rights. Where at the national level, we do the same thing, but we are looking to shape national policy. So the role is very similar. It's just a matter of which area are you representing. And lastly, on this slide, as a C.A.R. director, you are a representative of the entire statewide membership. So approximately 200,000 licensees are members of the California Association of Realtors, whereas at the national level, you're a representative of the entire nation and the national membership, which is around 1.3 million. So when we think about the local association and our responsibilities as a local director, if you're an Orange County Realtors director, we are looking at hyper local priorities. We're looking at Orange County, and we are looking to shape policies that affect our local marketplace. And we are representative of our entire Orange County Realtor membership. So once again, the layers are all aligned. So continuing on with what directors are expected, what you can expect as a director. So a C.A.R. director would need to serve on 3 committees at the C.A.R. level, whereas an NAR director serves on 1 committee. And in both roles, you need to prepare yourself and understand the issues and their relevance to the industry. And then at the C.A.R. level, you're providing an ongoing flow of communication between the membership and the state association, as compared to at the national level, it's similar communication between the membership and the national association. Lastly, when you serve as a C.A.R. director, you're a state director for C.A.R., your fiduciary duty is to C.A.R. And as an NAR director, your fiduciary duty is to NAR. And so although we are representing Orange County Realtors, and we are talking about a process that is twofold. We have a part of the process is at the local level, and part of it is at either the state or national level. And what I mean by that is we are selected as a C.A.R. or NAR director at the local level, but then we also apply with the respective organization, the state or the national association. So even though we are representing, or rather, let me say, even though we are selected by Orange County Realtors, technically, when we go to C.A.R. as a state director, our fiduciary duty is to the state membership. So we are a representative of Orange County Realtors, but our job there is to represent the entire membership of the state. And then the same thing is true at the national level. So, a couple of things that you're also expected to do as a director. You need to complete any online certifications related to conduct. There's usually an orientation. You need to be a positive representative for Orange County Realtors, and you need to act in the best interest of the association that you are there as a fiduciary, either C.A.R. or NAR, and also as a representative of the real estate profession. Of course, you need to prepare for all of your meetings and attend all of your meetings. And that is achieved by reviewing your materials in advance and also participating actively in the discussion and the voting at those meetings. And we'll talk about the time commitments in a little bit here. So you're also expected to model integrity, respect, civility, maintain confidentiality of non-public materials and deliberations, use social media responsibly, participate fully in your assigned committees and report back as requested. And we'll talk about that in a little bit as well. And then share key takeaways and updates from either C.A.R. or NAR with Orange County Realtors members to strengthen their awareness and engagement among those members. So these are expectations that are outlined in the application from Orange County Realtors. You'll be able to see this again to be able to read through it and understand what is expected. So once again, as a C.A.R. director, your fiduciary is to C.A.R. versus at NAR, it's to NAR. In both instances, the decisions must be made based on what is good for the future of the organization and the membership. And as a C.A.R. director, it's not a time for us to promote the personal or hyper local issues related to Region 32, which I talked about, which is Orange County, Laguna Beach, and Newport. So we need to explain and share the issues we're having locally, but we're not there to advocate for our local issues. We're there to advocate for issues that affect the entire membership in the state of California. And then the same is true as an NAR director, except that we are there as Region 13, which is California, Hawaii, and Guam. And so once again, each of the agreements that you would be reviewing when you apply with Orange County Realtors, you can find more of this information in those agreements. So now we'll talk about the time commitments. So again, we're going to just continue on side by side because a lot of the information is very similar. So with C.A.R., we have 3 in-person business meetings per year. We have one in the winter, one in the spring, and one in the fall. So that's usually January, February, April, May, June. Spring has sort of expanded into it could be April, May, or June. Just depends when the schedule allows. And then the fall is typically September or October. Whereas with NAR, it's 2 in-person meetings. We have a spring meeting, which is in Washington, D.C. We are preparing to head out in just a couple of days here for that meeting. And then we have a meeting in the fall, which is in a location that rotates as well. The winter and fall meetings for C.A.R. rotate in different locations in California, and our spring meeting is our legislative meeting, so that's in Sacramento. So in both instances, the spring meeting is the legislative meeting. So we're in Sacramento for California, Washington, D.C. for NAR. You also have the responsibility to attend any online committee meetings that are held in between those sessions. So some committees are very active and have a lot of issues or research to be done. And so they will conduct more online meetings more frequently than some of the other committees. So it really will depend on which committee you're on. And then there are also other online meetings that could be hosted by Orange County Realtors to help prepare us for these meetings, or they could be hosted by the C.A.R. or the NAR leadership or other committees that or forums that we'd like to attend or need to attend that are also online. But in terms of travel, you can see C.A.R. It's 3 in-person meetings at approximately 5 days each. It depends where it is. And, if you have to travel and if you're involved in certain meetings, you have to go earlier. But for most of the directors, it's 5 days. And then for NAR, for most of the directors, it's 6 days. Usually it's 5 days of meetings, but most of the business meetings are held in other states. So for us, we need to travel and we generally need that extra travel day, especially going to the East Coast. So some additional time commitments would include preparing for the business meetings. So, this week we've been busy with NAR meetings online to help prepare us for when we are at the in-person meetings. You also need to download your materials, read through all your materials, follow up with any requests that either C.A.R. or NAR has for additional information. So it depends on the committee that you're on. Some have more of a commitment, more of a time commitment and responsibilities between meetings, and others have less. So those are questions we could help answer if you're interested in certain committees. We could connect you with someone who has served on that committee, and they could probably give you a better idea of that time commitment. Then there's also the travel time. So we got to travel to get there and travel to get back. And then you're recapping once we return from the meetings. So you may be asked to attend a marketing meeting and give an update. You may be asked to attend other types of meetings where you have the opportunity to share with our membership what we talked about at these meetings. So when you're preparing for the business meetings, basically, I've already mentioned, you've got to read your materials. So you've got to locate it, read it, follow up with it, watch for all of the emails, and they come fast and furious sometimes with information about what we need to do, which meetings we need to go to, where we need to be, other meetings that are not on the schedule because they're California specific. So there's a lot of different things we have to be very organized with. You also want to download your meeting schedule and map out your week. It's always very efficient if you plan ahead and you can see what your week is going to look like. That saves some time and some stress and some missed meetings. And then there's usually a meeting app. So either C.A.R. or NAR will have a meeting app that they like you to download, and that way you can navigate through any changes in the schedule from what you saw online previously before you left. And then also you want to familiarize yourself with either the C.A.R. or the NAR website for any additional materials, because although at C.A.R. you're required to be on 3 meetings and at NAR on 1 meeting, when you go to these meetings, you want to attend as many meetings as possible so that you're prepared for the board of directors meeting and any items we're going to be discussing, any motions we're going to be voting on. You want to be able to attend as many meetings as you can to hear the information and hear the discussion. So you want to be looking out for their meeting materials as well, so you can be prepared to go to those meetings that you might not necessarily be a committee member of. And then lastly, familiarize yourself with C.A.R. or NAR leadership. You want to be able to walk the halls and know who our president is, know who our treasurer is, and various other roles that are important. You are there for the meetings, but you're also there to build relationships with the state or national leadership, along with any members who are attending the meetings. It's a great opportunity to meet people. And especially if you have a desire to participate in some leadership roles at either of these organizations, you want to start getting to know who has served in these roles, who has currently served in these roles, what the responsibilities are, and just getting to know them and maybe asking them, how did you get to where you are? So in terms of the meeting schedule, once again, review your schedule, mark things on your schedule so you know where you need to be. Anything else that's interesting, take note of. You do need to be sure you attend all of your scheduled sessions, and there is a sign in. So you need to attend the meeting. You need to be there on time. You need to stay through the entire meeting. And at the same time, you need to fit in your work that you've left behind. So we are working realtors. We are at the business meetings to participate in the business of the organization, but we also are conducting our meetings. So generally what that looks like is, waking up early, checking your emails, doing anything you need to do before you head out to the meetings. And then in between meetings, checking your email, responding to text messages. So you need to be as present as you possibly can during the meetings because your active participation is very important. But then you also need to fit in your work too. So it's always interesting when people who are not involved, they see we're going to Washington, D.C. and they say, have a great time. And, we will have a great time, but we have a lot of work that we're going to be doing for our meetings. And then, as I mentioned, we're networking and we're doing our regular work when we can. So it's a lot of early mornings, it's a lot of late nights, but it's very worth it. We network, we make friends. A lot of my friends that are my closest friends are friends from the industry, either at the state level or the national level, in addition to the local level. And then, of course, taking it seriously and having some fun. Those are ways to have successful meetings. I'm going to go through this quickly. You're welcome to have the slides. So basically, the committee structure is a chair, two vice chairs, and then there's usually some type of regional representation and then members at large. And so during the committee meetings, they're making policy recommendations, working on certain projects or programs, and or disseminating information at a forum on a particular subject. So committees are created through the bylaws and by the board of directors. The committees report to the board of directors. And if there's any fiscal impact on anything that a committee recommends, then that matter is reviewed by the respective C.A.R. or NAR finance committee. And then each committee will present their recommendations to the executive committee for review. Then it goes to the board of directors, and association policy is only determined by the board of directors. So all of that to say, when we're in these meetings, it's very structured, it's run very professionally. You become very proficient at Robert's rules. This keeps the order in the business so that meetings are productive. And ultimately, there's a process of the recommendations that come out of a committee. So a motion that comes out of committee, it has a process before it gets to the board of directors. And applying to be a C.A.R. director or an NAR director means you are a director serving on the board of directors. So ultimately, all the meetings that you're attending, the information you're hearing, you're gathering information so you can make an informed vote at the board of directors meeting. So here's just a visual. So we've got the board of directors is really at the top of the hierarchy, and then the executive committee is just below that. So sometimes it can feel like, well, the executive committee is actually above that, but they work in conjunction with each other. But technically, the board of directors is the one that is the body that makes the decisions. The executive committee are members of the board of directors as well. They just happen to be the leaders and get to weigh in differently, but the voting is completed by the board of directors. And then you can see below that the committees and the forums are really that first layer, and then everything filters up. So each of the associations, even ours, Orange County Realtors, we have descriptions of the committees online. So if you're interested in applying for committees at OCR, C.A.R., or NAR, you can see the committee descriptions online and learn more about them. And then, of course, you want to ask around, ask people who've served on that committee, find out if the committee you're applying for, if those are your people, if that's your passion, you want to be on a committee that has a topic that you're passionate about. So pro tip, plan on attending as many meetings as possible, as I've already mentioned. Again, the more you know about the issues, the better prepared you are to vote. And even just attending those other meetings to hear the information is also a great way for you to decide if this is a committee you'd like to serve on in the future. So, you don't know if you're going to want to be on a committee until maybe you've visited that committee and attended the meeting and watched it and listened and decided, this is a committee I know I can contribute. I know I'm going to get the most out of this information, and I'm going to, be excited to be on the committee. You don't want to be on a committee that puts you to sleep. And there are committees for everybody, for everybody's passions. Um, so after, when we're at these meetings, first we go to our committee meetings, then we have a regional caucus, and that's where our region comes together. So Region 32, again, Orange County Realtors, Laguna Beach, Newport. Region 13 for NAR is California, Hawaii, and Guam. We come together in those groups and we talk about the issues that we've been hearing about during these meetings and that we're going to be discussing at the board meeting. And this is really an opportunity for us as a collective group, a smaller group that is combined regionally, to talk about the issues and discuss how these matters will affect or will not affect our marketplace. And so once again, we're looking at the membership as a whole. We're looking at decision making for the entire nation. We're looking at decision making for the state. What's the impact of the decisions that are being made? And that's a great place for us to hear different perspectives outside of the committee meeting, because there will be members at the caucus who were not at the committee meeting, who might ask some really great questions or bring another perspective that maybe wasn't addressed at the committee. And also it's a place where those that were in the committee meeting can share what they discussed and learned at the committees to help educate the others who were not at the meeting. So it serves multiple purposes. So then we'll talk about expectations after returning from the business meetings. So Orange County Realtors will require a written report of the meetings that you attended. And so, I'll reiterate again that when we are selected as a C.A.R. or NAR director, we are being selected through Orange County Realtors. So the expectation is, as a representative of Orange County at either of these other layers of organizations, that you come back and you report. So you use your notes. You don't have to rely on your memory. Use your notes. Report everything in the form that's online. You need 14 days maximum to complete it. Trust me, the earlier the better. Otherwise, you start forgetting and you can't even remember what your notes were. They're kind of cryptic because you're writing quickly. You might not remember. And then it's important to know that Orange County Realtors staff will keep an attendance record and a record of whether you submitted your report or not, if you submitted it on time or not. And these are things that we'll take into consideration when we're making decisions on selecting future directors. So it's kind of a mini report card where things are being tracked, because we want to make sure we're sending people that are very engaged, who show up to the meetings, and who get their reports in on time. There is a specific reimbursement when we go to the California Association of Realtors meetings, and that's provided by Orange County Realtors. So that's paid through Orange County Realtors. In the agreement, you'll see what that looks like specifically. And then for NAR, it's a flat stipend that C.A.R. pays for us to go to NAR. And you are issued a tax form for those reimbursements or stipends. So when it comes to bringing back the information, we definitely want you to share that widely with your brokerage and anyone in your network. Maybe it's at a marketing meeting, to the extent that something is not deemed confidential and cannot be shared. But most of the things that we're voting on is for public consumption, either the state level or the national level. We want you to educate others on, what we did, what we talked about, why we're involved. We do a lot of advocacy that if I've touched on a little bit without saying the word, and just because I forgot to say the word. But when we're talking about protecting private property rights, we are advocating for legislation that protects property rights. So we need to educate others on why we're doing it, why it's so important to our industry. And then this helps increase the level of professionalism for all. I will say that one of the only regrets I have in this business is that I didn't get involved sooner. I was in the business probably 12 years before I got involved at the local association. And now it's been about another 12 years since I have been involved. And I'm absolutely a stronger professional from my involvement, simply because I'm having the conversation on the issues that matter. I'm part of the conversation. And I get the information first, and so I can come back and educate others. So it's a very rewarding experience too. We'll talk a little bit about leadership opportunities. So generally the entry level is being a committee member. And so you participate in the committee. You don't have to be a director to be a member of a committee at C.A.R. or NAR. So if you are not ready to apply to be a C.A.R. or NAR director, or if you do apply and you're not chosen this time, understand you can still apply for committees at these levels. There is a time frame. The time frame actually might have passed for this year, but you can look into that for the future. And you would check on the respective association website for details on becoming a committee member, applying for a committee. The next level would be committee leadership. So you could serve as a vice chair or a chair. And there's a process for that as well. So you could get more information on that down the road as well. And, pro tip, it takes time and very active participation to be identified as a leader at these levels. So, I mentioned I've been a C.A.R. director for, I think, 12 or 14 years. We'll go with 13. It's right in the middle. And, the first couple of years I was a member of committees, and as I would raise my hand, go to the microphone and speak on issues, that's when people started to notice, oh, wait, she would make a good vice chair or chair of a committee. And so I have served in those roles a number of times now, but it doesn't happen overnight. So you can be the top star at the local association, but when you get to those other levels, you have to be engaged and participate and become known, because they want people who are going to ask the questions, go to the microphone, and participate. So it can be competitive, but it can be something where you really grow, because you are taking those steps to be more involved and have your voice heard. So it's absolutely possible to do. And then there are other various leadership team roles at both the C.A.R. and the NAR levels. So there's too many to mention, but just understand that usually after you are a vice chair, you might become a chair of that committee. You might move to other committees and become a vice chair or chair of those committees. You might be a liaison. You might be on the executive committee. There's so many different avenues to go. But again, you've got to be demonstrating that you are taking those leadership opportunities, by going to the microphone and having the conversations and contributing at a higher level. So we'll talk now about the application and selection process. So getting started. So first of all, C.A.R. and NAR both have profiles on their websites that you need to complete. The C.A.R. one is not very lengthy. The NAR one was just completely revised, and it's very lengthy. They are looking for the depth of experience that you have, and so they ask a number of questions, and it takes quite a while to update that profile. Our previous profiles were cleared out, and so you're starting fresh, but that's okay. And you can go in and do your profile even if you don't intend on applying as a director. Your profile should still be completed, because it's another place online that could be searched and people can find information on you. And even if it's within the organization, if I'm looking for a referral to send to another city in California or another state, one of the places I look at are the profiles of the agents. When you go into each of these sites, there's a member search option, and I go in there and I put a city and state, and whoever pops up, I have the opportunity to see their picture, which will help me to see if I might know them, because I might not remember their name, but I might remember their face. And then I can also look at their experience. So I encourage that. you complete those even if you are not applying in the near future to be a director. And so then you apply for the committees on those respective websites. And you do need to apply for committees before you apply to be a director. So that's the order of it. Then you'll also submit your online application with Orange County Realtors. And that's where you'll be applying as a C.A.R. or an NAR director. In limited cases, you can apply directly with C.A.R. and NAR director. You can apply with C.A.R. or NAR to be a director through their at-large option, but you really want to start with Orange County Realtors first. And then an additional note is that eligible NAR applicants, so if you are applying to be an NAR director through OCR and you're deemed that you meet the eligibility requirements, you'll also be interviewed by the Credentials Committee. And so the Orange County Realtors application deadline for C.A.R. and NAR directors is coming up quick. It's June 26th. And I'm assuming in your recap of this, you will get a link to that as well. So the applications through Orange County Realtors for C.A.R. and NAR director positions are very similar. These are the application questions you'll be asked. I'm not going to read through them, but we are looking to see what have you demonstrated at Orange County Realtors and in the real estate profession? What have you already demonstrated in terms of your leadership, in terms of your involvement? It doesn't have to necessarily be a leadership position, but how have you been involved in advancing the industry or participating in the industry? They're looking for designations, any other volunteer work that you might be doing, even if it's outside of real estate. And then what other committees have you served on? So if you're applying as a C.A.R. director, have you participated in any of the C.A.R. committees or volunteer opportunities or meetings? So that's not a specific prerequisite that you've already served on those committees, but it's definitely something that we look at very closely. So this just kind of continues on. They're similar, but basically you're providing your resume of what have you done in the industry. So it gives us more information when we look at it. And when I say us, I mean the credentials committee. So I happen to be on the credentials committee. That's why I'm saying us. But the credentials committee will receive all the applications for the C.A.R. and directors. You're applying directly online through the link, which is through the Orange County Realtors website. And then those applications are all compiled. So the purpose of the credentials committee shall be to screen announced candidates for qualification and to resolve any issues relating to qualification and the conduct of election activities. So our job on that committee is many things. And I know there's a couple of people attending today who are on the committee now or have been on the committee. And so our job is to look at the applications and vet them for whether they meet the eligibility qualifications. And then in the case of C.A.R. and NAR director applicants, what is their experience? And do we feel that they are the candidate to advance to the board of directors? So annually, the credentials committee will recommend 12 C.A.R. directors and 5 NAR directors. There may be additional positions available. And then the Orange County Realtors Board of Directors will ratify the recommendations. So we'll talk a little bit about the selection process and the general qualifications. You must be a Realtor member in good standing. In order to serve at the California Association and the National Association of Realtors as a board of directors, you need to be a Realtor member. And you must be in good standing. That would be vetted through our staff at Orange County Realtors when they're reviewing and preparing the application for the credentials committee. They will inform us, yes, this person's in good standing, or no, they're not. There's also a DRE check. We want to make sure you're licensed. We want to make sure there's no restrictions. We basically look at it just to make sure it's a clean record. And then there's also an ethics check. So in the system, they run a report that will identify whether there's been an ethics violation. And so those are all general qualifications. And then for C.A.R., if you agree, then you need to actively serve on 3 state committees. You need to serve in a volunteer capacity at Orange County Realtors as a committee or task force member, or on the board of directors, or on a project. And then you need to demonstrate participation and engagement in Orange County Realtors activities. We like our directors to be out and about and attending the events and promoting our forums and providing information about the association to our members. And then if there are any additional requirements by Orange County Realtors and C.A.R., then that needs to be completed as well. And then for NAR, you need to actively serve on one NAR committee, and simultaneously, you need to serve as a state director. This is a requirement from C.A.R. Remember, you're selected through Orange County Realtors, but technically, C.A.R. is sending you to NAR. So you need to be a C.A.R. director as well at the same time. And with that, you are agreeing to a 3 to 5 year commitment. There's a 2 year term available. And again, you need to serve in a volunteer capacity at Orange County Realtors, on a committee, on the board of directors, and demonstrate participation and engagement, and then complete any additional requirements by OCR and NAR. I forgot to mention, because I didn't have it on the slide, for a C.A.R. director, it is also a 3 year commitment. All right. And so when the credentials committee is reviewing the applications, we're looking for those qualifications. Are you a realtor member in good standing? Did your ethics check come back good? Did your DRE check come back good? Also, I'll emphasize again, we're looking for demonstrated participation in Orange County Realtor committees. We look through the applications, and based on your responses, are we able to recognize that you take initiative and you make a difference in the activities you are involved in? Do you have any special knowledge, experience, or skill sets that would really add value to the conversation? And do you have a desire to improve our industry and protect property rights? So these are things we're looking for based on those series of questions. We don't always know everybody that's applying. So especially if you are not as involved, but you are involved, demonstrate through your application. Tell us who you are, tell us your involvement, so we can make a decision based on that information. And I mentioned on a previous slide, if you are applying as an NAR director, there is also an interview process. Up to this point, we've not adopted a interview process as part of a C.A.R. director selections, but for NAR, we have. And that's because we have, as I mentioned, we have 12 spots we're filling for C.A.R. each year. We're sending a total of 36, and actually we generally send more. But each year we have 12 openings, so we're selecting 12 people. But for NAR, we're selecting 5. And we do need to send some of our leadership from our board of directors, our president. And so that is automatically a spot that's already filled. And so we have a limited number of spots. So we need to make sure that the involvement is deep, and that the association is going to be sending the people that are really going to help make an impact at the association. So with that, here's some resources. So when you get the slides, you'll be able to link through. Maybe they'll even include these links in the follow-up. I'm assuming there's a follow-up email. But the first link is the C.A.R. website, and it's the C.A.R. meeting page. So you can see the schedule. You can get more information about what being a C.A.R. director looks like. There's tons of information there. And then NAR has a similar page where you can get tons of information about the NAR level. I did pop in the application links. These are the Orange County Realtor applications for the C.A.R. and NAR director. And I also thought at the very last minute, it would be nice to point out that we do have a upcoming C.A.R. meeting in October in Long Beach. So it's in our backyard. It's going to be easy to get to, and all members are welcome. This is the fall meeting, so there's the expo. So we generally see thousands. Like in Southern California, we'll see probably, I think last I heard, around 8,000 members will show up. And there are a couple of the 2 days of expo where there are different educational sessions that you can attend, but our business meetings overlap with that as well. And so there are some committees and forums that are open to all members. You would be able to attend, pop in, and experience it. So with that, if you ever have any questions, I'll take questions now, but if you ever have any questions, there's my contact info. I'm happy to share my experience with you related to being a CAR and an NAR director. And I've served in many roles as at CAR, so I can probably answer almost any question about CAR. And feel free to reach out if I can be of service at all. And with that, if anybody has any questions, I'll stop sharing. It looks like Kent raised his hand. Go ahead, Kent.
Hey, thank you for a good presentation.
Thank
So I
you.
had a question about the three committee services that you're required to for a C.A.R. Director position. So how do you apply for those? I didn't see a link, or I went into their website. I couldn't really find a clear way of finding a path through that, because you had to apply for that before you apply for
Mhm.
the director membership, right? The
Right.
director
So we
position.
can include that in the recap. We're sending a recap, are we not, Fong? Okay. Fong.
Okay.
Yeah, we can send a link to that. It is a little tricky. I will tell you that for me, the easiest way to find anything on the Sierra website is just go to the search bar and type it in, and it
Mhm.
renders usually what I'm looking for. But the application process for committee members, I'm pretty certain is still open for CAR. For leadership positions, it closed a few weeks back, but for committee members, I think we've got a few more weeks. Okay, there we go. She put it in the chat for us. Awesome.
Okay, perfect. And the process of, assuming you get into three committees, I mean, that would be the prerequisite for getting on the list of possible CR director, right? That's what you said.
Yeah. And so I'll give you a little insider information. So when we are actually going through the application process to review for qualifications for directors, we don't even have the information back yet of whether you got selected for committees. So we go on the honor system that you've applied for 5, because that's the maximum at CAR you can apply for. And because there are so many committees and the committees are large, I can't recall a time where someone actually didn't get on
Okay.
3 committees. Yeah,
I,
so
that's what I figured.
the chances are really good. And the timing is really a challenge for us because CAR is such a big machine that it takes them, they need a lot of time to vet through everything, that the requirements and the timelines are early in the year. I mean, we literally, like, we feel like we just got back from our winter meeting in February and it's time to apply for committees, and we're like, wait, we just started this year, how could we possibly be thinking about next year? But then even when we make some leadership decisions at the local level for our state representation, we don't even know if anybody got any leadership roles. So it feels a little backward, but we work through it, and your chances are really good on getting on the committees.
And just the last question then.
Mhm.
The so the qualifications, are they very different compared to the OCR director qualifications? Like, I just went through that. Is that very different, or?
It's really not. They're looking for a realtor member in good standing. They're looking for DRE and ethics checks too. And then at Orange County Realtors, we are looking for a specific length of time you've been a member, and also committee service. So they're very similar. They're not
Okay.
exact, but they're very similar. With the NAR level, that is probably the strictest, because it's a little more limited. There's there's less committees, and they don't want 1,000 people on each committee. So from California alone, we send about 150 directors are at NAR representing California. So there's a lot of us, and so for that reason, that's why you only have to serve on one committee because they know it's much more limited. And in all the years I've been going, I've never had a problem with getting the one committee. Um,
Uh,
and 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 when we have had a problem with somebody getting on a committee, because California is so large, we reach out to the California leadership, and they're like, "We'll get you on a committee," and they've always been able to get them on a committee. So yeah, so it all works out.
Okay,
But great
thank you.
questions. Thank you for those. Thank you. Regina, you had your hand up. You put it down.
I did, but I saw the chat in between Dave and
Okay.
Fong. I got the answers. But I have to say,
Oh,
if you're
good.
new to CER or NAR leadership, just put Lori on your speed dial and you'll be good.
I'm happy to help. Like I said, it's been a long time that I've been serving, and I've enjoyed it a lot, and I've enjoyed seeing a lot of newer people come in. So I'm excited to see some people say, "Hey, I at least want to check it out." There were a couple people at broker preview, one of the broker previews last week when I presented this, and well, I presented that we were doing this session today. I didn't present this session. And a couple of people came up to me after and said, "Hey, wow, I'd really like to just check it out. I don't think I'm qualified yet because I haven't been on any committees at OCR, but is that the first step?" And so it opens up a conversation. And so even, some of you on here, I see you guys now since I am not sharing my screen anymore. I see you guys. I know you're already CAR directors, and so you get that. And what I'll say about the difference of CAR and NAR is NAR is bigger. So when I was first a CAR director, my broker at the time, he said, "All right, now we got to get you to be an NAR director." And I said, "Oh, no, 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 that's so big and scary." And you know what? It is, but it's really the same. It's just bigger. It's a bigger playground, but it's really the same role. It's the same job. We're going there to do the exact same thing. It's just there's more people. I always serve on the risk management committee at NAR because that's my passion. I go to a ton of other committees. I don't care to be on the other committees. I'll go. I don't want to be required to go. But when I sit in that risk management committee, I think, all right, here's where we're going to hear the big issues. No, every issue we hear there, we've already experienced in California. So it almost feels a little remedial. But we are the ones that get to say, oh yeah, yeah, here's how we handle that. Here's how you get through that. So on that level, it's cool because we are not necessarily learning anything new at the NAR risk management, but we're able to share our experiences. And that is also contributing at a high level. So I love it. So yes, Yola, hi.
Hi, Lori. Thank you so much. I mean, anytime you do any kind of, educational thing, it's amazing. And thank you so much for
Thank
doing
you.
it. It's been last few years. That's yeah, a wealth of knowledge.
Thank you.
I have
Thank
a
you.
question. So when I first started as a CAR director, we did have I had a mentor, and it was a great program. So I'm wondering if that's something that OCR is looking to doing with new directors. I Once you go to Sierra, it's a completely different world.
Yeah, it's something we've talked about for a couple of years, and we've done it kind of informally. We've got a lot of people who are willing to take people under their wing. So I think our issue has been pairing people up properly. And so I think that when you know people at OCR, who are involved, you already have an alignment with some people. So check out, hey, who can I mentor? I know Regina's reached out to me, as she's already mentioned. She's reached out to me. I've got somebody that when we go to NAR next week, who, this will be her first time going to NAR, and she's like, can you help me? And absolutely. So all of us are happy to share, those of us that have been participating and involved for many years. But as far as like a formal mentorship program, we just haven't really mapped it out to a point where we've launched it. So anyone wants to volunteer for that, I'm sure Dave would be happy
Thank
to.
you.
So, okay. Any other questions? Okay. All right. Well, thank you for your time today. Ooh, we did it under an hour. Nice, nice. Um, If you have any questions, feel free. I'm happy to answer any other questions. Dave and Fung are very happy to answer questions. And if you know others who are currently C.A.R. NAR directors, I'm sure they'll be happy to help as well. So if you get stuck on anything on any of the applications, just reach out. We're happy to get you through it. Okay. Okay. Well, with that, I think we're done. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much.
Thank
Bye.
you.
We'll see you around. See you around, you guys.